Representative Rahm Emanuel. Congressman Emanuel, you are a tough leader of Congress. Will you cut off the funding for the Vice President's office if he continues to deny that he's a member of the executive branch?
Chris, I mean, you said it in your introduction. He is acting like he's unaccountable to anybody. Here he is, and he's taken an unbelievable step saying he's not a member of the executive branch. He's a member of the legislative branch. Therefore, he doesn't have to provide information, national intelligence information, national security information. So I said, if that's your logic, then we should be funding you through the executive branch. And either Wednesday or Thursday, my amendment will be on the floor because the funding for the executive branch is on the floor. I'll strike the money for the Vice President's office. He can live off the Senate presidency budget that funds him up here. And that's fine. But if he's going to be funded in the executive branch, he complies with the rules that apply to everybody. He is not above the rules of the executive branch.
Can you carry that amendment, Congressman? Can you carry that amendment on the subcommittee appropriation? Can you do it?
Well, I feel pretty strong right now, based on everything I've heard from my colleagues, that they think this is unconscionable, his actions, that he is unaccountable. I mean, do you understand? Does that mean that the ethics law of the Senate applied to him, not the ethics law of the executive branch? Nobody believes what he's trying to claim in the legal argument he's presented. If he believes it, so he doesn't have to answer those questions. If he truly believes he's a member of the legislative branch, therefore we won't fund the executive branch office.
Do you know, Congressman, how much money is spent by the taxpayer to give this guy a huge operations staff, a huge policy staff? He's got travel over the world. Do you know how big a budget he has right now?
And he also has a residence. He has an entire operation that supports him as vice president. And then he also has, as you said, the travel. I mean, it's in the millions of dollars. And it's not in my interest, because having worked in the executive branch, he is a legitimate member of the executive branch. I want him to comply with the laws that apply to the executive branch. He came up, and his lawyers came up with this cockamamie argument that he's a part of the legislative branch, therefore doesn't have to answer the questions or provide the material. So if that's the argument, and they really truly believe that, not just as a legal position, but that's what they believe, therefore we shouldn't fund him through the executive branch. I'm willing to live by the word and the legal argument he's made. I don't believe they believe it. What they're trying to do is avoid accountability. And this is the one place where Congress appropriates the money. I'm going to hold them accountable. And I think my Democratic colleagues and Republicans will.
Hasn't he won a court fight already about his ability to keep secret his, you know, we all know he's an oil patch guy from Wyoming. You know, he used to work for the oil companies. He was a big executive. We know he has a lot of friends in that world. But we also know he will not tell you or anyone else or the public who he meets with to get energy policy for this administration. And he won a court fight, didn't he, to keep that secret?
Right. He did. And it was based on executive privilege. But that was executive privilege, which he claims he's not part of.
How do you win the court fight, then?
That's the hypocrisy of the president. Because he is, and the court acknowledges that the vice president is in the executive branch. Therefore, that logic says he must comply with this information. And I think everybody acknowledges that his position is ludicrous, that the lawyers have taken on his behalf so he can deny any accountability here. And one way or another, we're going to have the vice president not act like he's above the law. And what happened for a long time, the president allowed him to act like this. The Republican Congress were enablers by not holding anybody accountable. And we have a vice president, 6 years training, acting like he is not accountable and not held to the same standard every other American is.
Suppose he thumbs his nose at you, Congressman, and the whole Democratic caucus and the whole House of Representatives and says, I'm not going to give you what you want. I know you want to know what I'm up to, who I'm meeting with. I'm not going to let you know. I'm going to classify information when I want to, declassify it when I want to.
Chris?
You guys can go to hell. Are you going to try to impeach him? What will you do? Will you go along with his Senate?
No, because what I'll say is, I agree with you now. You're a member of the legislature. Here's the $100,000 in your Senate presidency office, and that will be your staff.
Wow. You think you can carry this, Congressman?
I think I'm going to have this fight, and I think what people are going to know at the end of the process, we have a vice president who exudes a level of arrogance and unaccountability to the American people that thinks he's above the law. And we are going to take this to him and understand that there are consequences to an argument. Look, think about this. Every 8th grader who graduated from school with a class in social studies believing that the vice president was a member of the executive branch has to be retaught U.S. history because of the vice president's legal argument.
Well, the irony is he doesn't have any authority under the Constitution. All his authority comes, obviously, as an appointee of the president. The vice president simply gets to preside over the Senate, and he gets to succeed the president under the 23rd Amendment. But all the authority he has is given to him by George Bush. Do you think it's right for this president to give so much authority to someone besides himself?
Well, first of all, we know Do I think it's right? Look, the president makes a decision how he wants to listen to the counsel of his vice president. He's the commander-in-chief. He makes a decision. This is the most powerful vice president, and the president's structured it that way. What I do think is you have a person who is acting and conducting himself as he's unaccountable. And as you said in the earlier case, when he was able to withhold the information from the energy meetings he had with big oil companies and executives there, he invoked executive privilege. The position of the vice president is a member of the executive branch. And yet on this recent case, he's now saying he's a member of the legislative branch. You cannot do that just based on convenience. There are rules and laws that apply.
Well, it'll be interesting to see who wins this fight,
so my point is, you have to pick your office, and then we'll decide how those rules apply. But you don't get to cherry pick them when it's convenient.
Okay, it's going to be interesting to see, Congressman. You're a smart guy. You know the legislative branch. You know the executive branch. Who wins, you or him? I'm betting on Cheney because the guy never loses. Ever a fight. He wins every bureaucratic fight you and I have ever seen him fight. And this time you're up against him. You got to get a lot of votes to beat this guy.
You forgot one other person in this, one other entity in this thing, and that's the American people.
Okay, we'll watch and see if they get involved in this. Somehow they seem to overlook this character. Anyway, thank you very much.